conference will now be recorded.
And call the Killeen-Temple MPO TAC meeting to order at 9:30. And then we will move right into agenda item 2, which is opportunity for public comment. Is there anybody from the public in the room who wishes to make comment? No? Anybody online who wishes to make comment?
We have 5 people online, but no comments.
Okay. All right, moving right along. Agenda item 3 is regarding approval of the minutes from the April 2nd, 2025 meeting. This is pages 7 through 11 in your packet. Unless there are any revisions or changes needed or blatant errors, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I have a motion.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries. All right, agenda item 4 is a discussion and action item regarding recommending approval of resolution 2025-09, recognizing June 7th, 2025 as National Trails Day. This is pages 13 through 16 in your packet. Anita?
Thank you, sir. National Trails Day is the first Saturday in June, and it was established in 1991. This year will be KTMPO's first year of recognizing National Trails Day. We have a few objectives for this. One is to really highlight our regional connectivity for the future, our existing trails, and economic benefits of trail tourism. We have 3 events so far that are scheduled for Trails Day. Sun Country Cycling will have a beginner mountain bike ride at Dana Peak. Salado is actually hosting 2 different events. One is a trail cleanup at Salado Table Rock Amphitheater Trails, and then Barrow Brewing will have a paddleboard event on the creek. There is the resolution in your packet, and we're requesting, ATAC is actually requesting that Technical Advisory Committee and Policy Board recommend that resolution to pass.
Thank you. Any questions for Anita? All right, we're all trailblazers now. This is the first time we've done this. Next year, we'll see it again, I'm sure. All right, no other questions. I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Motion.
I'll second.
Second. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries. All right, agenda item 5 is a discussion and action item regarding the speed sign loaner program. This is pages 17 through 30 in your packet. So if you'll recall, way back, late last year, we received funding from TxDOT for the MPO to do for safety activities, and they were safety planning activities. And since we were undergoing our SS4A, we really couldn't use the funds for plans. So what we did as the MPO was we decided to make a request to TxDOT, which they approved, for us to purchase mobile speed signs that we can use the data from to inform our future plans as we move forward. We've received all of that equipment. We've drafted instructions on how to use all of that equipment. And what you'll see in the packet recommending for the recommendation of approval of the policy board is the interlocal agreement for the MPO to enter into agreements with local jurisdictions so that they can borrow those speed signs and use them as they may desire, with the caveat that we get access to the data for those speed signs. This resolution, or this ILA, I think was brought to the TAC probably a couple months ago. What I'd like to remind everybody is there's no one interlocal agreement that will fit everybody's need. So the caveat to the recommendation of approval would be to recommend approval of the interlocal agreement with the authority for me to negotiate with the local jurisdictions depending on what their legal departments may say they need included or removed from the ILA. That I'm open to any questions.
They'll be available here? Where will they be picked up at?
They're available here.
If I may, I'm here representing Christina. She sent me a list of a couple of questions she has. So, she wants to know what the request process will be, how the priority will be.
Since we haven't had, we're just starting this, I don't know that there'll be a mad rush. If jurisdiction just send us the information, and if we start getting overwhelmed, we can create a prioritization process. We have 10 signs, so that's a pretty fair amount.
I think the question that I would ask is, if you're gonna put up one of these, you're not gonna put it up for one day, but we're probably not gonna keep it for an entire year either. What's the appropriate amount of time for a city to have those up to collect enough data that's gonna be useful for either the MPO or text data and put it on, say, 1741? And if we know that's what the time frame to have one of these out there, that's probably gonna inform, okay, we're all committed, but Temple's got to get theirs back at the end of the month, so Belton, you're up next. We can start figuring out how to share them around.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm open to all those conversations. I don't really know what the right answer is.
Right.
We've typically done days rather than weeks, maybe, kind of goes on a bit. You can start with a week, 7 days or 10 days, something like that.
Typically what we do with our speed, when we do our speed studies and stuff, when we get those requests, we usually have them up for a week.
Okay.
And then that's enough to kind of get that full week, kind of determine where we're really looking for speeding, if you're speeding, and then looking at the data, because it also tells you what hours you can encounter, and we can work with our PD, or what other remedies we may look at.
That's helpful. I was sitting over here thinking 30 to 90 days. So,
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's usually a week. Every time you do traffic counts or something, it's about a week's time.
I know our Public Works has a couple of those that they use to work with either, like I said, doing a speed study or the Lone Wolf PD, because PD would just wants to put them up there and get people's attention. They said that works better for traffic calming than putting up speed bumps or striping or any other thing.
I think it goes to that public shaming, because everybody can see the Any other questions? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the interlocal template that y'all have provided.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries. Okay, agenda item 6 is a discussion item regarding update on the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant in-kind match report. That is pages 31 to 32 in your packet. Just a brief update, that grant we're really winding down on that. The match, the in-kind dollars received are right around 158,000. What we're required to have is 192,000. But the in-kind that we can actually submit is 56,000. So once again, if you haven't seen forms come through for signature, please let us know. I'll be following up with everybody probably right around the 1st of June for all those. We're still in the process of resending a lot of those out, and we've gotten some back. I think the last time we looked at this, it was right around 40-something thousand. So we are getting those to come in, but I'll actually start following up with individuals as we get closer to the closeout process. Any questions on that? Move to agenda item 7, which is a discussion item regarding Safe Streets and Roads for All, the SS4A Taskforce, pages 33 to 34 in your packet. Jason?
Yes, sir. So when we used to call the BLUF, the bottom line up front, we have not set a date for the first task force meeting. Like I said, we're wrapping up the grant, but one of the kind of implementation steps that we talked about in that process was we want to continue to have these meetings just to share information between the cities, the counties, the urban areas as well as the rural areas. I think there's a lot of helpful information that we can share. We just need a platform and a vehicle and a time and a place to do it. So we're thinking this SS4A stakeholder group would be it. And Kendra's been banging my inbox on a weekly basis. When do we, hey, did you see my email? I did, and I apologize that I've been busy. The goal being that we're continuing to look at data, specifically fatalities. Is there trend? Are there trends that we can identify? Is there a solution that we can find working? Maybe it's a Temple issue, but it's a county road, or it's right on the fringe between Belton and Temple. Maybe there's something that we can collaborate on. Obviously the cities come to this committee, but we've got some of the rural cities that don't. So there's another, again, chance for people to share information. It shows that we're still paying attention to the data. Talked to Victor about some data that I had looked at in Temple, talked with our police department, comparing Temple, what's right for Killeen may not be right for Temple based on the way I-14 and I-35 are constructed. But we just need to have a group that gets together quarterly is what the idea is, and just talk about, is there a solution? Are they working on something? They have a fatality board that every time there's a death on the interstate, then they convene and look at. Our police department does the same thing. And we just want to have that same type of conversation, that we are paying attention. When new 2024 data comes out in, I think you said June, then we can look at that and just see, is this region, is Bell County or Coryell County, are we meeting our goals that the MPO set safety goals? Are we meeting those goals? If we are, great. If we're not, do we do a deeper dive into the data? Is it distracted driving? Is it speeding? Those are the two that I see a lot when I look at crash history for like zoning cases. But if you've ever looked at crash data between urban and rural, you will see different patterns. You'll see roadway lane departures. You may see greater instances of driving while intoxicated. So there's no single solution that fits all situations, but we just get together and meet. So we'll just have to work with Kendra and work with the other stakeholder members for that group to set a meeting date. Okay, so I think we're already into May. We may look at June.
Would it be beneficial for that meeting to possibly, follow the TAC meeting, or?
Could be.
Okay.
Yep, it's a great idea.
Well, we'll keep coordinating, see how that works.
Just keep talking.
All right. Any questions for Jason? Seeing none. Agenda item 8 is a discussion and action item regarding Safe Streets and Roads for All, the SS4A FY 2025 Planning and Demonstration Grant. This is pages 35 to 37. All right. SS4A. As we close one grant, SS4A grant period is open right now. Of course, we did our comprehensive safety plan. What we're doing here is trying to see if there is support or recommendation from the TAC for us to possibly apply for additional planning and demonstration funds, not implementation funds, for large scale projects. It's very hard to come up with in-kind for those types of projects, but for the NPO region, to identify some additional planning activities that we could use those dollars for, and maybe some demonstration projects. A couple of things that we've talked about are to possibly implement a regional planning theme, like safe access to schools. As we went through the SS4A planning process, safety around schools was a big topic for all jurisdictions, our counties, our cities, everybody. And then possibly looking to enhance some of that with, pedestrian hybrid beacons for awareness around school zones, and then maybe making some crosswalk marking enhancements. These are things that I think the safety task force would be instrumental in determining what best, what methodologies may work best, like Jason referred to. I mean, what may work around one school in Killeen may not work around a school somewhere else, you know, in Rogers or wherever. So it'll be good to have those conversations, and then maybe possibly seeing if there are other new technologies for us to gather more data and inform our plan a little bit more, and then maybe to utilize some of the additional funding if we applied to update our plan as needed so that it falls within the current requirements of the federal, of the administration. I say that because, you know, they're not requiring us to change anything in our plan right now. What they are saying, you know, we've heard from one side, we're not funding any projects that are in plans that were completed with SS4A dollars under the previous administration to just send us your plan. We'll tell you what we think. Maybe you can make some revisions. So we don't really know what we don't know. They're not really being direct on whether, you know, people are going to be able to apply or not. They have said that we could send them our plan and they would review it. I don't know what the benefit in that is, but, you know, if we need to utilize funding to update our plan to remove or change or modify certain portions, I'd be happy to go through that effort as well, as long as we don't, as long as that effort doesn't have a negative impact on the overall safety messaging that our plan is sending out. And that's the safety is important to the KTMPO and Sitka region, and we're going to continue our planning efforts to ensure that people that live here and visitors continue to be safe on our roadways. Open to any comments, questions, concerns, thoughts on applying for additional funding, project ideas. I know there were some implementation projects that were identified in the plan, but those, you know, when we started this activity, identified implementation projects, the main reason for that was so cities could utilize our plan to apply for those large implementation projects.
And we submitted two for primarily sidewalk pedestrian improvements in Temple that came out of that. Still waiting to hear, you know, for the HSIP program. Feel good, feel optimistic. But given that we submitted those projects based on the data and the conclusions of that plan, I'd be reluctant to go back and start making revisions to the plan and kind of self-censoring ourselves because we think someone might turn around and take the money away. My very cynical take is if they decide they want to take the money away, they will find a reason to do it. What's in our plan may or may not make a difference. We may put a ton of staff effort into revising the plan to what we think is going to be compliant, and it may turn out to be completely unnecessary because they don't come back and rescind the money. So I would say unless there's distinct guidance that says, you know, from FHWA, from DOT, from TxDOT, this plan needs to be revised to comply with this federal spending bill, you know, official guidance.
And
then we do that.
That could be something that,
you know,
that we look at if we were to apply for funding to
Yeah.
make sure that we're not having a negative impact on things that are already happening.
I think, and the reason I say it, and I'm admittedly, you know, cynical about it, the guidance that has been coming down the last few months, what we get changes by the hour sometimes. So if you could, and y'all, I know y'all staff is just as busy as we are in Temple. It just doesn't seem wise to spin your wheels in the anticipation that there might be something that they're going to tell you to do. I'd focus on what needs to be done, and then when there's clear direction, then we follow the direction.
And I do understand that, and we'll touch on the memo that was received as well.
Yes.
And I guess we can do it now. I had it in my director's update, but, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, Secretary Duffy did send out an email stating, just reaffirming that recipients must comply with federal non-discrimination immigration law and warning that USDOT will use enforcement tools against any non-compliant recipient. That being said, if you apply for projects under our plan, and the only thing that really strikes me about our plan is the chapter on equity.
Right.
And the way it's worded, and it has every keyword that's been listed. And I'm not saying that we open that right now. What I was referencing is if we move forward with an application, we can put that in there in a line item as needed, updated plan to conform to current.
And we're, trying to be cognizant of the whole picture. With that memo, when that came out, and you see the actions that the administration is taking, it may not come down to the MPO level. They've been focusing on that. Immigration enforcement, okay, that's driver's license. So that's still DOT, DMVs. That may not touch us. So that's why I say let's not draw a spotlight on ourselves by revising and resubmitting our plan. Let them choose what they're going to choose to do elsewhere. We keep moving forward with the projects that we selected, of which equity was a component, inclusivity was a component, but it also wasn't the only component. And I think that's the part that bugs me, is that we selected these projects because there was a safety need, there was a congestion need, there was a connectivity need, inclusivity, equity, diversity. Those words that the administration doesn't want me to say, that I'm going to say, they were a component because, one, it's the right thing to do. Two, that was the federal guidance at the time. We were doing our jobs to the best of our ability to follow the federal guidance at the time. If we hadn't been doing that, we would have been in violation of the law. So we are in troubled times. We need to do what we see as the right thing, which is to continue to move forward with the projects that we have selected and funded.
Uryan, did you have a staff recommendation on what you want to do with the submission?
Right. Our recommendation really is to recommend the policy board approve us applying for a planning and demonstration grant, especially for these three areas. We can leave out update the plan as needed, and just, if it comes down to it, make the revisions. I mean, we have different versions of the plan.
And other reasons of updating the plan might even just be including additional data,
Absolutely.
signalization, or fatality. It
Right.
could cover just data in itself rather than language.
Well, and when we do some of these demonstration projects, we'll have that data that we'll need to, we will need to update it. We won't need to update it to align with federal priorities.
So just looking at the three that you listed, I mean, we obviously knowing updating the plan makes sense. We do data, whatever we're looking at new projects, it's an opportunity to look at that. Also, as directed, if we are directed, we update regarding the equality and all that, which is not a priority now with federal government. But then your other two items, leverage new technology, I think is probably something that could benefit everybody a lot more. What is out there? Because a lot of times we don't have, in our jurisdiction, we don't have time to really look at all the newer technologies that could help us on some of our projects.
I think we may be able to utilize funding to identify those technologies, and then we have the one listed. Something that I've always been interested in that close call, near miss type technology.
Which that would help us, because when I look at the first one, when you're talking about schools, I mean, every city, every jurisdiction has a certain plan. We've already implemented some of these things, and then if you're trying to go out for a specific grant to give us opportunities for funding, well, then you're gonna have to look at, okay, what's a priority? How are you gonna allocate it, between, equality between all the jurisdictions, Temple, Killeen, Harker Heights, and maybe Harker Heights doesn't use the rapid flashing beacons, so I think of what you've shown here, actually, I think the third one's probably the higher priority, and then work your way to the middle, but it's gonna be a little hard when you start just doing a theme across the city, because we are all different.
Well, yeah, and
School
that
districts are different.
that was kind of the thought on that, is because, the demonstration projects, they're meant to be, just a handful of projects. So we would need to identify, hey, where do we want to try this? Where do we want to try this? If Killeen didn't want to do this, but maybe, and I'm not only thinking the KTMPO region, I'm also thinking the COG region.
Right.
Maybe in San Saba, their schools, if this technology may help them, them and maybe someone in my own county, maybe somebody in the MPO.
Right. Because every school's different, and you start talking about pedestrian safety, it goes more than just the crosswalk. You gotta look at the sidewalks, you gotta look at the ramps, you gotta look at connectivity, so it's very easily can blow up to a bigger project. It's like you're at a traffic signal and it doesn't have heads. Well, now you're triggering upgrading everything. So, if you want to touch a ramp, well, if you're actually doing that, you got to upgrade ramps. So things get costly real quickly. And, coming up with a strategic plan, but again, every location is different.
Any other questions, comments, feedback, recommendations, suggestions? Is there a motion?
That's, I was just going back to look. So you need us to recommend approval of the planning demonstration project.
The planning and demonstration project application.
Yeah.
And then we can prioritize these three items. I mean, make the middle one the first priority with the new technologies. And then, the update of the plan is going to come with the data that we get if we move forward, apply and are awarded. So.
I'm leaning towards that near miss close call analysis. That's something we've heard before. And it's something that I gave a presentation recently and said, it's one thing if we have the data that supports there's been crashes here. Okay, we're reacting to that, but someone had to get hurt first. And I know, for this, you're more than likely to be hiring a consultant, or would this be done by staff to do that near miss? It's going to be really heavy into public engagement.
It would be a consultant effort. But the staff here, they're great, all 6 or 7 of them. But I don't know that we have the capacity internally.
Yeah, if we could identify an opportunity, again, I'll keep referencing my old Army things, with the IED fight back in Iraq and Afghanistan. What we used to talk about was getting left of the boom. If you did the timeline, bomb maker builds a bomb, insurgent puts it in the road, U.S. forces get hit by the bomb, and then we react. Then we maybe go back and do forensics. Maybe we catch the guy running away that pulled the trigger. But all that is right of the boom. That's all reacting to the incident. We always tried to work with either patrols or intel or whatever systems we had to get left of the boom. Countermeasures to disable the remote control trigger. That was getting left of the boom. So if we could get left of the boom on the near misses, I think that would be valuable. And I think the amount of public involvement that's going to be required is going to be received very well, because people want to know that government is out there looking for the well-being, that we are trying to prevent the crash before it happens. We're not just waiting. And I've heard this came up. Anita had the folks that came out a couple months ago, that the woman was killed crossing the road by the funeral home. And one of the family members said, "Why does it take my friend dying for y'all to pay attention to this?" Perfectly valid question. And that's been a big criticism that I've heard here and elsewhere. It takes someone getting killed. It takes the mayor's grandson getting hit on his bike and get a broken leg for someone to start paying attention. So if we can show that we're paying attention before some kid gets hit, that's a good thing. That's where I'm going. That's 2 soapboxes I've had today. Cut me off.
There's plenty more.
I know. Don't get me started.
So, yeah, I think we actually need one or all of the themes identified in the grant.
Or if they privilege staff to be creative with the planning theme that aligns with kind of the target projects.
Yeah.
Developing priority with that person would be probably the first thing. You can develop a theme, but then setting up a priority of how to actually pick and how jurisdictions can apply or submit requests to tap into that. In regard to motion, I think, I say we consider applying for a funding opportunity with, emphasis on the second item, leverage new technologies and post-call, and then following up with implementing, developing the strategies and priorities for the first bullet, and then updating as needed when we go through the process.
Second.
I was going to say, was that one whole motion?
Yeah. Once he took a breath.
Yeah, okay. I was watching you.
But work on it. All right, so I have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. All right, agenda item 9 is a discussion item regarding the TIP amendment schedule for calendar year 2025 and amendments to the fiscal year 25-28 Transportation Improvement Plan, the TIP, and the 2050 MTP, pages 39 to 61 in your packet. Callie?
Okay, so we have created an amendment schedule that we're gonna start following for these next upcoming TIP amendments, essentially the August one, and I'll have an example of that schedule in the following slides. But before then, we'll rewind a little bit back to our May amendment. We submitted a few amendments to the TAC and Policy Board for approval this past April. And the public comment period went over past when Policy Board approved. So the public comment period ended on the 19th, and Policy Board preliminarily approved it on the 16th. So now that that has ended, we have that public comment summary, and I'll pass that over to Anita to present any comments.
Thank you. It's in your packet, y'all, but what we did is we had one public engagement event take place at Helping Hands Ministry of Belton. We had an online opportunity, and then we also, both of those were supported by an online survey. Out of both of the events, we had 27 responses to the survey, and for the most part, they were overwhelmingly approved and affirmed by the public. They all thought they were a good idea. So we did receive an invitation to go to a meeting. It's called VIP, Visually Impaired Persons Meeting. And then we had one comment regarding Spanish translation, so we're working on resolving that. Otherwise, it was all really a great response. Any questions about the public comment period?
Questions?
All right, yeah, thank you, Anita. So now moving forward to the August revision, there are two different things we're asking the TAC members to look at. That we could either, the administrative amendments, which are on projects that, or changes to projects that don't go over a certain threshold of money or don't exceed the project cost by 50%. There's change in CSJs that don't affect any other aspects of the project. A change in funding sources already included, with projects that are already included, and changes of let dates. We had a few administrative amendments in May as well. And then next slide, please. The formal amendments are those bigger changes. So changes in costs that are greater than that set amount or over 50% of the project cost. A change in phasing or anything like large changes in descriptions or design concepts, and those do require a public comment period. So that is why we're going to start requesting, you get those into us about 3 months before on the 15th. If you go to this next slide for the August amendment, we're asking that TAC members get any changes they need, even if it's administrative or if it's going to be a formal amendment, to us by May 15th. And then we do already know we are going to have some formal amendments, and so we will be initiating public comment periods from June 23rd through to July 7th. And then on the 2nd, we will ask TAC to consider recommending approval. July 16th will be when we bring it to policy board for approval, and then we'll start submitting that August revision and as soon as it opens up within the ESTIP in August. So if you have any projects or any changes, please get that to us by May 15th. If anybody has any questions or comments. And I do have the schedule included in the packet for the whole rest of the year. So if you want to look at that, it outlines the red would be when we need to do by, and we also outline when we're planning on going to public comment if needed.
Just to confirm, the May 15th, that's for formal amendments, correct?
That's correct, yeah. It's a lot easier with administrative because we don't have to go to public comment, but as soon as you want to get it to us, the better, just so that way we can go ahead and have a list of everything.
You change our 2 sidewalk projects?
Yeah, so I have those ones that you sent, so that will be in the August ones, so I have those listed there. And then at any of the let dates that we included from the last amendment, those will be administrative amendments that we're going to be adding.
Any questions? All right, this is just a discussion item. So if you have any questions about amendments, the TIP amendments or MTP, please reach out to Callie. She's our resident expert right now. So she's been working really hard to get this process in place so that we can kind of streamline what we've got going on and not have a lot of last minute amendments coming in where we have to alter and adjust, public involvement periods in the middle of it. So I appreciate the effort on this. If there are no other questions or comments, we will move to agenda item 10, which is regarding the draft TxDOT KTMPO SITCOG planning agreement. This is pages 63 to 81. This is still just a draft. We have not signed the planning agreement. This is just for your awareness. We sign these every 5 years. We're required to enter into an agreement with the COG as the fiscal agent and TxDOT as the state agency. There have been some revisions made at this go round, so they're still TxDOT is still working. They're down in Austin to kind of determine what the rest of the revisions need to be. And we've been in communications with them. I think we're going to have one more meeting to discuss proposed changes prior to them sending an actual draft for us to review and possibly sign. Questions on the agreement? This is just a discussion item. Seeing none. Discussion item 11 is regarding the draft 2627 UPWP that was sent to Federal Highways. Last month, the TAC recommended approval of our draft UPWP to Policy Board. Policy Board approved that draft UPWP for submission to TxDOT and Federal Highways for review and feedback. That was submitted following that Policy Board meeting. The deadline was actually the 1st of May, so we got it in plenty of time. We haven't received any comments back from Federal Highways or TxDOT, but as those come in, we'll make the revisions necessary before submitting another draft for consideration to the TAC and for approval by the Policy Board. Any questions on the UPWP? Agenda item 12 is a discussion item regarding scoring criteria survey responses and staff recommendations, pages 85 to 89. Kendra?
Yes, Callie sent out an email to the TAC with a link to a scoring survey. We received 6 responses back. So thank you all for taking time to do that. It was really some high-level questions, just more so, are you satisfied with how the project ranking turned out, the ease of scoring, and a few other recommendations or questions that were inserted as far as moving forward. So based on the responses, it does seem that the project scoring process and criteria used was satisfactory. The final project rankings did align with the local priorities for the cities in the MPO region, and the general consensus on the objective versus subjective scoring for both the roadway and livability tracks was to keep it more objectively aligned with 60% objective and 40% subjective involvement. Again, this is to ease the burden of scoring on the TAC when taking time to score these projects. It was not favorable for staff to provide blind scores, so we will go ahead and remove that moving forward, and we will also not proceed with any specialty scoring teams within expert areas. So that was not a favorable response either. So there does need to be a little more discussion on, it was about 50-50 on the lump sum of the 40 points assigned to the project scope, which is item A, parts A through G. That was brought forward as, do we want to keep it to where amongst those 8 items we still assign 5 points per item, or if we were to just give the TAC members 40 points to really stack up into any of those areas. I feel that it's worked well by limiting each of those 8 areas to the 5 points each, rather than 40 going to one of those areas. But we did want to open that up for discussion with the TAC. Overall, the takeaway from this item is the criteria in and of itself, they are great criteria. We will continue to look into the specifics of the criteria and how, with federal regulations and priorities, we will continue to watch that. But generally, we're still on the right track with the criteria that we have, the points per criteria. One change that we do want to make right now, I believe the roadway is around 95 points total. We want to bring that up to 100. And then livability is around 85 points perhaps. We also want to bring that up to 100, just to have 100 for both, and a split of 60-40 objective, subjective for both. So as we get further down the road, this is just really a beginning conversation. As we get further down the road into this year, we'll bring back those specific areas to talk through with the TAC as to how we want to beef up each of those, adding 5 more points to the roadway 15 more points to the livability side. We're working with Decision Lens right now as far as loading some projects into their portal, and they'll load in our criteria as well, and we can kind of turn the knobs a little bit on some of those projects to see how they would have better scored. So a takeaway from today's meeting is also if there are any specific projects that you would like to see as, if we load, say, 4 or 5 projects into Decision Lens, please submit those recommendations to Callie, and we will be following up with Decision Lens to start not only loading in all of our MTP projects, but also some of these specific projects that we can play with and bring back a report to you guys and update. Our anticipated timeline to reopen the call for projects will be next spring. So we'll be working over the next 6 months of bringing items back to you all for input and feedback so that we can further refine the scoring criteria and make it more objective, less tasking for you all, and more fair across the board. That is all I have on that item.
Any questions for Kendra? Feedback, comments? I know we review the scoring process a lot, so I mean, I feel like we're really making some progress now.
And every time we do, we get at each other's throats.
But if anyone is interested in seeing, I created a layout of the 2018 revision, the 20 revision where we hired the consultant, and then the 2023 revision. So you can see across all the themes of our criteria what has remained the same over the past 3 revisions, what has been substituted and why. So you can see it from year to year, but also you can see it charted in a separate way amongst roadway or livability by year. So I have a few copies of this if anyone is interested in looking at a deeper dive. I didn't want to draw too much attention to the specific criteria at today's meeting, but if you want to get a jump start on what's changed and when, just so we don't end up going back to something that's already been fixed, that is charted beyond probably what you want to look at this point.
It's nice, it's on glossy paper.
That's where we are, yes. 14 by 17.
Any other questions or comments for Kendra? Seeing none. Agenda item 13 is a discussion item regarding TxDOT's AADT data review and public comment period, pages 91 to 104. Kendra?
This is another notice that you've received from Callie. This has a deadline of this Friday, May 9th, so that's why you received that notice in advance. This is an average daily traffic review that TxDOT is requesting of the MPOs if they're interested of leaving comments. It's an ArcGIS platform that we can go in, select the KTMPO as the reviewer, and then either flag any comments or missing data. There is a chance that any missing data is still under review by TxDOT if you see something that is missing or that looks off. But we're happy to relay any comments on your behalf, or you're welcome to make those comments in the map yourself. So that is closing on Friday, the May 9th.
Questions? Agenda item 14 is a discussion item regarding KTMPO's regional active transportation plan update, pages 105 to 107. Anita?
Thank you. The Active Transportation Advisory Committee is working on updating in 2018, we actually had a regional multimodal plan, and so now fast forward, we want to create a regional active transportation plan. And with that plan, what we're looking at is focusing on integrating safe routes to school. I understand that's a new language, is safe access, I guess. Sidewalks, bike paths, transit stops, parks, shared use paths across the region, And what we're going to be doing is, the primary objective of this is I want to highlight bullet point number 3 on there, demonstrate planning readiness, and it'll improve our grant competitiveness and help us prioritize projects for our region when we start applying for TAs. And over here we have Tay, he's our GIS. So you can expect an email from Tay. He's going to be reaching out to your GIS staff to help build those different layers of our regional mapping system. And the whole goal is to create different layers, beginning in Kempner all the way to Troy and everywhere in between for our whole boundary. And then on top of that, after that, we're going to take this out to public comment and see what the public has to say on what they believe are the areas that need to have improved connectivity, improved crosswalks, and sidewalks, ramps, anything like that, that with the possibility of creating a regional trail at 2050. Long range vision, big hopes and dreams for this plan, but really with the purpose of improving our grant competitiveness. Do we have any questions?
Questions for Anita? All right, thank you, Anita.
Thank you, sir.
Agenda item 15 is a discussion item regarding public input received through April 2025, pages 109 to 113. Anita.
Thank you. Do y'all mind moving that to the next slide, please? Thank y'all so much. So what we have here is during the month of April, we had 2 public comments. One was on a Hill Country Transit District, and I did forward that over to y'all's team, Daryl. Unfortunately, the person that requested that, their phone number didn't work, so we weren't really able to help resolve that issue. And another one was, it actually came through our KTMPO mailbox, and it was in Spanish, and it was actually for housing. But so we forwarded that on. I wanted to include it because it was directly through our KTMPO mailbox. The green here is actually does not line up with the color and code inside of the packet. It's a little darker green. But in April, we're going to start including our amendment comments as a separate line item so that we'll have basically, I think it's 3 streams of responses. One is going to be participation in community events. For instance, we had the annual bike rodeo and Safe Kids event at McLean's Children's Hospital. If I would have got comments there, they'll be in next month's. We have the public comments received online. That's our email and our little public comment feedback link on our website. And then we have email, telephone, and then we have our feedback from our amendments. So that's 3 there. And then we have by topics. As you can see, the amendments is 27, and safety continues to be a leading concern for our citizens with 3. Are there any questions or comments regarding our public comments?
Questions? Okay, thank you, Anita.
Thank you.
Right. Agenda item 16, Director's Update, pages 115 to 117. As you'll see on the screen in your packet, our upcoming meetings are listed. Other updates, I had a meeting with the other NPO directors and TxDOT leadership 2 weeks ago in Austin. The main takeaway of that is we're continuing to work well with TxDOT. We appreciate them. But they did want to point out that DOT staff level was reduced by approximately 4,000 people. With a direct impact, our Texas FHWA specific Texas Division Office was reduced by 50%. So, we're still able to communicate with federal highways. We haven't noticed much of an impact, but I'm sure at some point we will start to notice as we go through like the UPWP process and things that they have to approve, with their limited staff, that there may be delays in doing those. I already touched on that letter from Secretary Duffy about compliance with federal non-discrimination requirements. The AMPO conference, that's an annual conference. This year, that's in Rhode Island. If you have an interest in attending that, please let me know. I'm also going to be sharing that information with the policy board. I know typically, not many people from the TAC or the board go. I think last year was the first time a board member went, so it's pretty interesting to have an actual board member at the AMPO conference. They're able to, talk with other elected officials and MPO elected officials. So it's very valuable. The last thing I have is last month, TAC and the policy board approved submitting AMPO's priorities to the Transportation Infrastructure Subcommittee for the House. We received a letter just a couple days ago from the EPW, from Senator Cruz's staff at EPW for the Senate, with a deadline to submit priorities by Friday. So that's, only 2 days. For the reauthorization bill, we have, AMPO is actually currently taking what we submitted to the TNI and kind of formulating it to fit the response that Senator Cruz's staff have reached out for. I did contact them, just so everybody's aware. So those emails went out to all NPOs and all RPCs in Texas. I called them for some clarification and what they're really looking for. They're not looking for projects. If NPOs or RPCs send projects directly, that's automatically going to get pushed to the side. They're looking for legislative funding type priorities that need to be included in a bill specifically targeted for federal highways. AMPO, like I said, AMPO's drafting that. They've already submitted some legislative text to committee members for both TNI and EPW. So those conversations are already ongoing. So I have no doubt that we'll have something to submit by the deadline Friday. Any questions on that? All right, I think I have one more update. Air quality readings are 70 and 74 parts per billion. With that, I'm open to any questions on the director's update. Agenda item 11 is member comments. Are there any member comments? All right. Item 12, we will adjourn at 29. Thank you, everybody.